Bernard wants to discuss the truth of the Old Testament, specifically five books of Moses, the five books of Moses, I think that says. So Bernard, you are on AXP with Godlessengineer and Johnny P. Tell us about the truth of the Old Testament.
Hello. Hi. I'm very happy to be here. We'll start like this. First of all, when you have a question of something, if it's true or not, and we say, for the most part, even the atheists say that we basically can't know really anything for sure. So you have to go with the most logical, most reasonable of the choices. That would be the main thing. Now, so as far as the Old Testament, the five books of Moses are concerned, there are only two possibilities. One possibility is that somebody decided to write it. Somebody or a group of people, it doesn't make a difference. But not God made, in other words, not from God. Somebody made a story. He wrote a book, but obviously, for the sake of the discussion, we're going to go now on that possibility. The other possibility is that it came from God. That God dictated to Moses what to write down, and he wrote it down, and it's all from God. Because Moses didn't do anything. Just like the secretary writes a letter from the boss. It's the boss's letter, not the secretary.
Okay, so real quick, just you were a little quiet in the beginning. I want to make sure that people heard you all right. So volume up if you can, crew, because I can barely hear our caller. So no, that's not something for you to take care of. That's something for the production to take care of, and they've got it. But if you can speak up. Uh-huh. So there's two options about the Old Testament. Either a person wrote it or God wrote it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So do you agree to that so far? I mean, do you have a third possibility?
Well, so do you?
Wrote it,
well, so I mean, do you deny that there's a way that we could just simply not know? Like, this feels like a false dichotomy. Are you familiar with that?
Those two, we don't. I agree. We don't know. You're saying right now we'll go for the sake of the conversation. We don't know, but there are two possibilities. Either it was written by a person by himself, or with a group of people. Doesn't make a difference. Or it came from God. Those are the two possibilities. You have a third.
So are you saying that, just so that I understand, are you saying that it's either people wrote it or God literally wrote it, I guess with his God hands reaching out from heaven?
The Moses too. Yeah.
Okay, so regardless, so it seems a little pointless, regardless of whether or not God is involved, people wrote it, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying if it's not people who wrote it from themselves, they wrote what God told them to write, so it's considered like God wrote it. I mean, that's
okay.
I mean,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you a clarifying question real quick. How do you discern between somebody like just writing something and saying God said it versus God actually communicating it and having them write it down? Like, what's your criteria for determining that, this is actually like a word from God or a directive from God versus somebody just making it up?
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to show. Okay, so let's go on the possibility that somebody wrote it by themselves. All right, not from God. Right? We're taking that option right now. So if somebody wrote it not from God, but it's very clear from this book. It's not like a Moby Dick. This was something that he wanted the people to accept and follow, as if God sent it. Right? I mean, that's what he's saying. The whole time it says God told Moses. God told Moses. He's making it up, right? But he wants them to believe that God did it. That's the whole point, and then they should follow the rules and regulations. That would be the purpose. Correct?
I'll go that far with you. Sure. It was written not just as a story like Moby Dick, fantastic book by the way, but written as in the pretending to be a message from the divine. Okay.
With the the will of having the people accept it. Otherwise, there's no point in writing it to begin with, right? He wanted the people to accept it, and how are they going to accept it? And he's telling them that it came from God, but he's making it up. He's making that up. It came from God, but he wants the people to accept it. So I want to say,
well, I think that's an oversimplification, honestly. Because
if that was
hey, no, stop, Bernard. Were you trying to interrupt me? I didn't think so. All right, so Bernard, it's also possible that the stories were orally transmitted between groups of people in its earliest days as a way to explain the existence of the universe, and that over time they changed and they developed until it became more prescriptive, more dictatorial in a way, where it was a message from God. In the beginning, when it was first brought out, maybe in like a shamanic kind of early Hebraic people culture, they may have been telling each other stories to explain why the world exists the way it does, not necessarily as a representation that this is messages coming from the divine. Is that a possibility too?
Well, for the sake of the conversation, you might think that's a possibility. I don't think it's really a possibility, but
how'd you rule it out?
In a moment.
How'd you rule it out?
So I'll tell you why I ruled it out.
How did you rule it out?
The writers, I'm going to tell you right now, that the writers made a big mistake. What was the mistake? If they wanted it to be given over to the nation, to the people.
All right, Bernard, you're not answering my question. I ask enough questions in my daily life to know when a person isn't answering it. Let's go back to my question. How did you rule out that this didn't originally start as an oral tradition of individuals trying to explain to each other how the world exists, using the best information they had, pre-science, pre-writing? How do you know that this wasn't just like a brainstorming session that caught on and that the story resonated with them and then it turned into a descriptive, prescriptive, top-down God story? How did you rule that out? How did you rule that out?
Because it would not fit into what it says in the book.
Right. But the book changed over time. You do know, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, Bernard. I do love it that you called. But do you think that the first time that the first 5 books of the Old Testament came into existence was in a writing format? Do you believe that there was no oral tradition at all before the written format came about?
Well, according to what it says in the Old Testament, it says that Moses wrote it down.
Cool. The book says a thing. Why do you accept that the book is accurate? I hate to say this, but
In other words,
a lot of books say a lot of stuff. Yeah, Godlessengineer, please.
Well, so I mean, I just want to make sure Bernard can say yes or no if this is effectively summarizing what he's trying to tell us here. Basically, the Bible's written by God because the Bible says so. Is that the argument you're making?
No.
Good.
That's what I'm saying.
Good.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay. Can you please? Okay. So one of the hurdles that you have to overcome with what you're trying to put forth here is the documentary hypothesis. Have you heard of the documentary hypothesis for the Pentateuch?
No. What is that?
Okay. So it's the leading hypothesis for how the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books of the Bible, was collated or written. And basically, just to boil it down, I'm not an expert in this particular area, but I have read a lot of the expert material on it. But basically, there's a lot of different versions that were floating around in this group of people, and then later editors came back in and took different portions of different texts and stitched them together. One of the key indicators that this is the way that it was generated was how God is referenced to, because you have some portions of the Pentateuch that reference God as Yahweh, others reference him as El, others reference him as Jehovah. And so you have all of these different ways in which this one God is referred to, and this is one of the indicators that they use to suggest that there were multiple authors or multiple different pieces of or multiple documents rather that were then stitched together by later editors. So what do you have other than, well, the Bible says something different? What do you have to suggest that that isn't the most likely explanation for the Pentateuch, its generation? Like, how can you explain that without using the Bible itself?
Right, because if that would be the case, that different people wrote these different names for God, then you wouldn't have two names of God in the same sentence or in the same paragraph, where they're talking about the same thing. So who wrote that one? The one that you.
Well, so do you deny the ability of editors to splice sentences together from different works? Like, I could take a sentence from Moby Dick and splice it in with a John Wick reference. Like, I mean, those things have nothing to do with each other, but I'm a later editor that is crafting something new. And so I can just piece them together however I want to.
Yeah. Now, first of all, I don't think there's any evidence for this. I mean, that they knew that they had the different portions of the Bible at different times. I don't think you have that any evidence for that. You can say it happened, but the evidence for that you don't have. But the main thing that I wanted to bring out is the authors of this. I'm not getting you a chance to say my piece here. I want to say a certain thing. I haven't able to say it yet. I want to say something that, I mean, it says in the Bible, it says all kinds of stories about miracles, people that were in Egypt as slaves, and they came out and with the 10 plagues, remember, magical things, miraculous things, and then they came to the Dead Sea, and it split open.
Okay. Hold on. Let me just stop you right there. So, as far as scholarship goes and actual evidence goes, there's no evidence for the Exodus or the plagues of Egypt as far as how the Pentateuch or the Bible relays them. So, I mean, that's not going to work. For us. Also appealing to miracles, which is essentially, at least for me, how I perceive them, it's just magic. Like, you're just appealing to magic, and that isn't convincing either, because I don't think that magic is real. I think illusionists can create what seems to be magical, things, but ultimately it's all explained in a very natural way through, illusions. And so appealing to miracles or magic is also not going to be good evidence for, like, the I guess historical veracity of the Old Testament. What I would personally be looking for is some kind of actual real evidence to confirm the things that the Bible says, and we just simply don't find that in archaeology or other pieces of evidence, like even textual evidence.
Continue with your thought, because I think Godlessengineer is a little quicker on the pickup than I am on this one. Continue.
I'm just saying that the people that wrote the Bible, those people that wrote the Bible, made a big mistake. And the mistake was that they wrote it as a biography of a certain nation. In other words, the people that accepted, according to the Bible, the people that accepted the Bible were the people that all this happened to. It's not like it happened to your grandfather and you don't know because you weren't there. It's telling you that's like it says, like in the first of the Ten Commandments. I am the God that took you out of the land of Egypt from slavery. Right? He's talking to them, to those people that it happened to. That it's supposedly have happened to. Right? So anybody that would try to accept this book, knowing that he was never a slave in Egypt, and he was never all the things that it says it happened to him, never happened to him, he'll never accept it. The fact that it was accepted must be that it was accepted by the people that it happened to. Otherwise,
okay.
Never accept it. Just like a biography. If I write a biography of you,
Bernard, you're not persuading me at all. This is not persuasive. Is this so I don't think I understand. Tell me more about the truth of the Old Testament, because the fact that they wrote a book and it was supposed to be a history of the Jewish people or the Hebrew people, I look at the difference, and people believed it. I don't see the connection as to why that would be true. I don't see, just because they wrote it in a way that it tells a history. So what? There's a history in the Lord of the Rings. There's a background history of the Lord of the Rings told as though there are, 4 ages of the world, and the creation happened in a certain fashion, and a conflict happened in a certain fashion. So what? So they told some people wrote a story about the ethnic group they belong to, trying to explain the universe. So what? Why is that supposed to be persuasive to me? Please come. Enough going back and forth. Come right at it. Tell me.
Forget about that's not the point. The point is,
okay, Bernard, stop right now. I want you to get to the point. We have wasted so much time with you. You trying to get to the point. Respectfully, I'm only going to live to be like 80. I only have so much time, and we only have so many minutes on this show. Come straight to the point.
Very simply, I'm saying if the purpose was to give it over to the nation, then you wouldn't you wouldn't put in the book how it was given over, because you're not giving it over that way. You're giving it over to a nation. You're saying that it was a nation that went to Egypt and was slaves in Egypt and saw all these miracles, and the people you're giving it over to never saw these miracles. How do you expect them to accept it? You're telling me. All right.
I got something. How about this? It's myth and legend. How about that? It's myth and legend. What? George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and said, "I cannot tell a lie." It didn't happen. But when you're a kid, it's taken to be a kind of a truth. It's a metaphorical truth about the honesty of our first president, George, whatever his middle name was, Washington. Doesn't mean it has to be true, but it exists. So why does that matter?
If it would say to you that you were there when he chopped down the tree, and you weren't there, you would never believe it. Correct?
Right, but we're talking about a story that takes place over the course of. I'm going to mute you. I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Actually, I don't know how to mute. Someone help me out here. Oh no, I know how to mute. There we go. Jeez, Johnny without his mute. I'm not getting anything out of this. Godless Engineer, do you want to take this in a different direction? Because I think this is a waste of our time and our viewers' time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like all this is banking on, well, they wouldn't have believed it if it didn't happen. And I don't know if Bernard would want to try to correct me on that, but that's what I'm getting from this, is just simply that people wouldn't have believed this if it didn't actually happen to them. Therefore, it actually happened to them. And I feel like you need to actually present evidence that it happened to them, and not just, oh, these people so many years after the supposed events happened, they believed in it, therefore it did actually happen. Like, that's not how you actually construct a reasonable argument to convince somebody that's skeptical of your holy book.
Was accepted. The book was accepted. It has to be accepted by the people that it says it was accepted by. That's what I'm saying. No, people would.
Okay, well, let me interrupt you real quick though. We're talking about a group of people that thought that there was a physical layer of space between here and like the moon that was the celestial realm, and that there were like demons and angels and everything like that, like inhabiting every single level of heaven, even past the moon. That there was like obviously that's physical space, that's not what I meant, but they had a physical idea of the celestial realm. They believed in a whole bunch of weird and crazy things, like for instance Philo of Alexandria, he personally believed that Moses was actually a pre-existent divine figure that was given a physical body and sent down to earth in order to accomplish the things that he supposedly did in the Old Testament. And then when he died, he actually ascended back up into heaven, much like Jesus did. So, I mean, they like, even in the 1st century CE, we have these crazy ideas that are believed by these, ancient people. So like, you just simply claiming, oh, they wouldn't have believed these things unless they actually happened, that doesn't actually convince anybody, like at least anybody that's skeptical now, because we understand that ancient people believed weird things. So them believing in weird things without evidence is kind of like par for the course at that time.
Yeah, and just because, sorry, what is your response to that, Bernard? I'm about to let you go. Make it good.
But I'll tell you, I'll give you a different proof.
That wasn't a proof. That was a thing you said. Just because you call it that word you keep using, I don't think it means what you think it means. But please, what's with number 2?
I'm saying according to the what I was saying was that according to the actual book, the people that accepted it didn't believe that it happened. They saw it happen. It's saying to the people, you saw this happen. Now, if you come to me and you tell me I saw something that I didn't see, I would never believe you. I would never accept the book. The fact that it was accepted means that they.
Yeah. Okay. I got it, Bernard. You're going around in circles. This is terrible. You're better than this. I don't. Just because they believed something doesn't mean it's true. The Bible describes a lot of stuff that we know scientifically and experientially are not true. The fact that it's there and people believed it doesn't mean that the thing that they believe is actually true. The point you're trying to make is not as profound as I think you think it is. It's certainly not making any headway to me. If anything, it makes me, and I don't do this, it makes me kind of look down upon ancient people for believing such demonstrably false things. And I know that they were doing their best with what they had. As far as the fact that they kept telling the story over and over again, I think the best way for me to look at it is that it was a series of legends and myths that they used to explain the world around them. And that's about it. And then as we got a little bit more savvy, we realized that it wasn't necessarily true. Bernard, I don't think we're going to get anywhere with you. And I would like you to call back if you can come up with something better. So thank you for your call.